Hello and welcome. You're tuned into Eye on Africa with me, Rochelle Ferguson-Biahi. These are the top stories on the continent. In Kenya, President Uhuru Kenyatta and his rival Raila Odinga urged their supporters to shun violence ahead of repeat presidential elections, which have sparked political turmoil. The World Health Organization says an outbreak of the plague in Madagascar has now claimed at least 94 lives. The pneumonic plague spreads from human to human and can be fatal if untreated. And aches and pains may be an unavoidable part of old age, but a group of grannies in Johannesburg have found a novel way of dealing with their ailments. But first to our top story in Kenya. Both President Uhuru Kenyatta and his rival Raila Odinga have appealed for calm ahead of a presidential rerun which has sparked political turmoil. Overseeing celebrations for Heroes Day in Nairobi, Kenyatta warned that the opposition against disrupting next Thursday's vote. Meanwhile, at a rally honouring those killed in recent protest, Odinga urged his supporters to shun violence. France 24's Simon Harding has more in this report.
A military parade which doesn't hide the profound political crisis. With less than a week to go before the repeat presidential elections, Kenyan leader Uhuru Kenyatta oversaw the commemorations of Mashujaa Day, the National Heroes Day. After inspecting the Guard of Honour, the president addressed the hundreds of people there, calling on them to vote in the election rerun.
Hatuwezi kuishi in what is called a permanent state of elections. Our economy needs to move on, and we must rid this nation of that uncertainty. And it is indeed my appeal to every Kenyan: exercise your democratic right on the 26th of October.
The situation in Kenya has been steadily spiralling out of control since the Supreme Court annulled the results of the presidential elections originally held in August. Over 40 people have died over the last 3 months, mostly killed by security forces during anti-government protests, which were subsequently banned in the capital Nairobi. Whilst attending a rally honouring the victims of the protests, opposition leader Raila Odinga blamed the president for the violence and called on him to restrain the police.
We are telling Uhuru Kenyatta, you are not facing this innocent Kenyan. If it is about the contest, you are facing Raila Odinga.
On October 10th, Odinga had said that he was withdrawing from the election rerun because the process wasn't credible and has called on his followers to protest on the day of the elections instead.
Away from Kenya, there was relative calm in the Togolese capital Lome this Friday, a day after anti-government protests turned violent, leaving at least 5 people injured. Well, since August, hundreds of thousands of people have taken to the streets calling for President Nyasingbe to resign. The opposition coalition says in the last 2 days alone, 7 people have been killed in clashes between youths and the security forces. Well, France 24's Sarah Sacco has been speaking to residents in Lome.
We want peace and tranquility. We want to be free. But by being governed with sticks and weapons, we cannot be happy.
We do not have peace of heart. We live with fear every day.
If there are people of goodwill who want to help Togo, that's good. They should do it. Not doing it or staying indifferent, that's bad.
South African prosecutors have given President Jacob Zuma until November the 30th to make submissions before deciding whether to reinstate 783 corruption charges filed against him before he became president. Well, last week, the Supreme Court of Appeal upheld a High Court ruling to reinstate those charges, which are linked to a 1990s arms deal. Well, the court's ruling has amplified calls for Zuma to resign before his term as president ends in 2019. The World Health Organization says an outbreak of the plague in Madagascar has now claimed at least 94 lives. The number of suspected cases have reached over 1,000. Experts say that number is expected to rise. Well, over 70% of the cases are pneumonic plague, a form that spreads from human to human and is almost always fatal if untreated. The WHO's Regional Emergencies Director for Africa had this to say.
What's distinctive this year in Madagascar is that the season of transmission started much earlier, And we have zones that are not usually endemic that were affected. But we also have significant repercussions in the big cities like Toamasina and the capital, Antananarivo. Another particularity is that we have a higher proportion of pulmonary cases.
The Oscar-winning Kenyan actress Lupita Nyong'o is the latest woman to reveal that she was sexually harassed by the Hollywood producer Harvey Weinstein. In an opinion piece for the New York Times, Nyong'o said she was invited to Weinstein's home in 2011 while she was still a drama student. Once there, she said Weinstein asked if he could give her a massage and then offered to remove his trousers. The actress describes a number of other encounters with Weinstein over the years, including some propositions. Now, a decade ago, hyperinflation in Zimbabwe wiped out personal savings, left shops empty and made it almost impossible to buy a tank of petrol or even daily groceries. Well, fears of a repeat of those desperate days have grown in recent weeks, and panic buying has seen prices skyrocket.
Zimbabweans are once again spending countless hours queuing at shops, garages and banks, hoping to collect just enough to get by. In recent weeks, there have been fewer grocery items and fuel in stock, on top of existing limitations on how much money a person can withdraw weekly. These restrictions have resulted in businesses feeling the pinch.
Business is not that good. It's getting worse because people are getting $50 per week. And most of this money is then used to pay their rent, and they will be left with no money to come and buy goods from here.
Panic buying and stockpiling have been triggered by a lack of confidence in bond notes, a parallel currency launched by the government nearly a year ago. In theory, it is worth the same as the US dollar, but Zimbabweans fear it could become worthless.
It's largely a problem of confidence within the market. And probably, even as we approach elections, I think the uncertainties will remain. They may even increase political uncertainties of what may happen, even economic uncertainties in terms of the direction of economic policies. Is government going to print more bond notes? So all that will further erode confidence in the system, which could exacerbate the situation.
Mugabe, whose land policies are widely blamed for Zimbabwe's economic collapse since 2000, riled against what he called currency saboteurs and vowed the price hikes would be dealt with.
There are those who are eager to manipulate the currency so that they can trigger inflation, cause panic buying.
Fears are mounting that the situation could deteriorate back to the levels of 2008-2009, when inflation peaked at 5 billion% before the national currency was abandoned and the economy never recovered.
And finally, aches and pains are part of old age, but a tough group of grannies in Johannesburg have found a novel way to deal with their ailments. The ladies have decided to get into the boxing ring. They say that their twice-weekly training sessions keep them young and energetic.
They are all over 75 years old. Their punches always hit their mark thanks to 2 training sessions a week. Boxing gives these elderly ladies in the suburbs of Johannesburg a new lease of life.
The advice I would give other grannies like myself is to stop telling themselves they're old and grannies and just do what they can. Being a grandma doesn't mean you need to behave like the word grandma weighs on you. Being a grandma doesn't mean you need to behave like the word grandma weighs you down. You need to wake up and show that you're full of life.
The program was launched 5 years ago, and the coaches believe that the sport is helping the ladies in their everyday lives.
They're taking care of their grandchildren, cleaning the house, some of them. So most of them we thought that boxing is the one that will also make them relax, make them think, make them young again.
What's more, their sessions aren't any different to younger boxers or professionals training. Stamina drills, hitting the bag, they do it all. For some, it has even helped them overcome health problems, such as Jamina, who suffers from cancer.
I advise the other grannies to go to the gym, because it's like a doctor. We have high blood pressure, diabetes, some have had surgery, but here they feel alive and can move around. They moved around with walking sticks, but now they can walk normally. I feel younger. I feel like I'm 16, but I'm actually 80 years old.
As well as increasing their boxing skills, these sessions have allowed them to make friends and therefore fight against loneliness.
An impressive group of ladies there. I'm tired just watching them. You're up to date. Up next, more international headlines. Stay tuned. You're watching France 24.